Okay, so great. So thanks for having me. I will talk about Dox's code, and there will be some parallels to the first presentation, but we can then skip that part. So to my person, I started a long time ago writing documentation, and yeah, for the last 5 years, I did mainly automation for API docs and other docs. So today I want to answer the questions: what are docs as code, who needs them, who doesn't need them, and how to implement them. I will mention the main characteristics and also talk about some advantages and disadvantages. And if there is enough time, I can also show you some screenshots from my company Visual, where I currently work. So docs as code. We won't talk today about web processors, authoring systems, or wikis, but we will talk about the recently, or I don't know, from the maybe the last 10 years emerged markup code tool chains. We also heard about in the last presentation. And so what are docs as code? As the term already suggests, the documentation is just treated similarly to code. The same processes, workflows, and tools are used to do that. So I then continue with the main characteristics. There are many more, right? But I try to concentrate on what is usually part of every docs as code toolchain. So first of all, text files in markup or markdown. So markdown files are usually characterized by being readable very well in text editors. So it's not like when you read HTML where you have to look between all the tags for the text, right? It's usually the other way around. So very minimal formatting is used in the file, in the markdown file. Then you need, of course, a text editor to edit this markup or markdown file. You can use the text editor that comes out of the box with your operating system. I personally like Atom. It's an open source tool. Then you will need a static site generator. We also heard about these in the last presentation. So to convert your source files to the target files. So with a static site generator, you usually create HTML files, but you can create a lot of different formats out of Markdown or markup. You then have to have a version control system to store your files. Here, mostly Git is used, or GitHub, GitLab. Also more old-fashioned versioning systems such as SVN. But yeah, Git, I think, is the most commonly used one. And also then not just used for saving and storing, but also for the collaboration. And I think we don't have the time to talk more about branching, merging, and pushing, but you can easily Google that or write me maybe after the presentation, and I can explain that to you if you're interested in that. And then CI/CD, we also had this today. So continuous integration and continuous deployment. This is mainly used for the automation part, for automating the build, and so to make sure that all the steps and jobs are carried out in the right order. And you also have automated tests, right? And for software testing, you can for documentation implement the link checker, check the formatting, having blacklists, whitelists, and terminology. So who then needs docs as code? The next slide, please. So yeah, I always say lazy people like me, because I think when you have boring tasks that are repeatedly coming up, it's always better to have a computer to take that over, and that gives you time to do different stuff, right? For example, coaching developers or other writers that are not so skilled or firm with writing tech docs. I also do a lot of pair documenting. So you might have heard the term from pair programming, where where two programmers sit next to each other and try to write the code together. And then also having some kind of knowledge transfer as a side effect. So I also do that a lot with the developers, because then they get more experienced in writing, and yeah, and they usually they write more when I do that. So who doesn't usually need docs as code? I think marketing and C-level and management, because they like to have some show effects and colorful pictures and graphics. So docs as code are definitely not suitable for everyone. How can you implement these then? So as the docs as code, as we already learned, comes from the software development side. And when you work in a software company, all the infrastructures and the tools are already there, right? And the developers, they are also there, and they have all the knowledge. And when you explain to them that you will make their lives easier in the long run, that you will take away work from them, and that they don't have to leave their IDE, right, where they program, then they usually are very, very willing to pass on the knowledge and to help with implementing automation. And also when it comes to your boss and to convince yeah, the people giving money for new stuff, it's mostly easier to get more licenses for already existing tools or using open source tools than to buy some fancy new knowledge management system. This is just what my experience has shown. Next slide, please. So this is the process, and I think we've seen a similar picture today, where the different stages are described. So yeah, it usually starts with the request that something needs to be changed. This is then reviewed. As soon as the changes are done, a merge request is created. And then as soon as the checks are green, right, and they know, and the CI/CD tools tells you that everything is okay, you can then deploy the new version. I have screenshots from my workflow now on the next slides. So it all starts off with the markdown file. Here you can see it in the Atom editor, and you can see here that it's very basic formatting is used. So it's very well readable without an extra tool. For example, for bold, you just use 2 asterisks or underlines for italics, and so it's very, very well readable. So the first column of the process I've just shown is then writing that documentation or editing it. And then next slide, please. You have to add these changes to your version control system. Here you can see GitLab, because in my company we're using GitLab. You add it to the already existing docs. You have to write a commit message, and you usually work in a target branch, so you do not push all your changes directly to the already existing, but you work as long as you think you need it. You work in your separate area, right? And then as soon as you have, next slide, please. As soon as you have created this merge request, in the background, the CI and CD starts, right? So the build is starting, and it's pretending to merge all your changes to the already existing docs. So that you know at any time in your writing process, hey, I can merge that anytime. I can create the new version anytime. So for every change, a separate build is started. So you will know whether you can publish a new version or not. Next slide, please. So when then the build is green and you are all satisfied and you are ready, then you can see on the left-hand side the GitLab repository with all the files that are needed to create what you see on the right-hand side. So this is what I've done in the company. I created a developer portal, which consists then in the end out of static HTML files. And everything that you can see here is in the base for that are the files in the GitLab repository. Everything. It's the handwritten stuff, the automatically generated stuff, the UI you see, the theme that lies behind it, everything. And yeah, so the advantages are, first, the most important advantage is time, because in 3 minutes I can create a new version. It's very developer friendly, as I already mentioned. You have the versioning, you can always see who has done what. The form and the content are separated. You can reuse a lot of content with snippets by modularizing your documentation. And it's a very, very low price. On the next slide, I've also mentioned some disadvantages for sake of completeness. So of course, people will have to invest some time to switch to Doxys code, and you might have additional license costs or even consultant costs if you don't have the developers in-house who can help you with that. And as already mentioned right at the beginning, it's not suitable for any kind of documentation. So if you have to document some measuring tools that are usually delivered with a paper manual, I think Doxys code wouldn't be the best solution. So next slide, please. So yeah, are there any alternatives? Of course. So I started off 5 years ago with AsciiDoc and AsciiDoctor. So if you want to try out Doxys code and you don't want to spend a lot of money, go to the AsciiDoctor website and just try it with I don't know, maybe a quick start guide or something, and play around with that. You can get a really good impression by using these. What you've just seen on the screenshot from my company, it's a tool called Redocly, because we are having mainly API docs, and maybe you know Swagger. So this is automatically generated documentation out of a YAML file. So we combine these automated docs with stuff that we write. And in addition, next slide, please, because I think I put everything here so I don't forget anything. Combined with a really cool tryout feature where you can try the API calls, the requests, and you will get back like real responses. And for some maybe as a technical detail, we also needed Google RPG integration. So they built that for us, Redocly, and we worked together on that. And I think the results are amazing. So we have this developer portal and we have everything we wanted. And yeah, we can, yeah, I think in under 3 minutes, we can have a new version if we want to. So now what is on? Yeah, so if you want to have a look, I mean, I think you will get the slides, or even it's just ping me on LinkedIn or write me an email if you're interested in that. You can have a look at the portal if you want to. I also added some details about the components we used that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So for example, for the versioning control, we use GitLab. And as mentioned, for the whole, it's a kind of all-in-one solution right now because they implemented that for us. So I can highly recommend Redocly. They even have a free plan if you want to play around with that. And I will add some more. You can have a look at some more screenshots I put in the presentation of the different file types, because I think we run out of time, right? And want to leave now the time for questions, if that's okay.
It's perfect. Thank you very much, Petra. I'll go slowly. Well, this is the end of the presentation, so thank you very much. And I think we still have a question.
Okay.
Would you advocate docs as code even for the very large volume, versatile type of documentation? From Elisabeth Sardo.
Yes, I think I would, because I had administration guides in my former company with 5,000 pages. And the whole checking and rechecking is done by a computer. So, you know, a computer is stupid. It just does what you tell it. So it's less faulty, I guess, than when I do it. So I usually, when you trust your tool chain and when you trust your tests, I mean, you have to have really good tests. I think this is the main thing. You have to have a developer, or you do it yourself when you're capable of really good tests, and then you can have really large volumes, and it will make your life so much easier. We had tons of installation guides for different operating systems and stuff, and now for every service pack release, for every week, they just come out magically.
Thank you. We have another question from Rosalie Chadla. Hello, Rosalie. I'm very happy to hear from you, to see you. Do you think you could share with us examples of automated tests you've implemented or worked with later on?
The automated tests. I mean, I use, when you use Redocly, a lot of stuff already comes out of the box, right? So it's there is a linter there is a link checker there, and what I plan to do is to have a terminology checker. I don't have it yet, but we can get in contact and talk about that. This is quite a new field, and yeah, so I think there is not much stuff available that you can reuse, because that is very often, right? Also, like developers work, they go to Stack Overflow, they copy paste some code and do the adaptions, and then they try if it works. So I usually also work like that, but for the tests, not much stuff is available. So maybe we can collaborate on that. That would be great.
Excellent.
Mm.
AFOS asked another question. Thanks for the presentation. How and when the content of the doc is reviewed and validated by SMEs?
Okay, so usually when I have the first version in the version control system, I have to get an approval of at least 2 other people. So then either I can add them as reviewers, and then they will get an email by GitLab that they please have to review and press that approve button if it's okay for them, or they can suggest changes or comment. So this is actually functionality that comes out of the box with the versioning tool. So GitHub has exactly the same functionality as GitLab. And so yeah, at least 2 reviews have to be carried out, and you can change that in the version control system. You can also have 10 reviewers, and you can also put the names of the potential reviewers already in there, so that you only have to check boxes for whom you want to review your docs.
Thank you very much. Tony Bridget asked also a question. Features as extensive as in Postman, for example. I mean, can you enter your query parameters, etc.?
Yes. Yeah. In the tryout feature, or the tried out part of Redocly, you can you do not even you do not only see all the potential responses and parameters, but you can also change them right there in the inline. So this is really a cool tool. So if you're working with Postman, you will love Redocly.
Okay, last question. How do you handle reuse with markup markdown files?
The reuse?
Yes.
Okay. So
This is Hélène Letour who asked that.
yeah, so usually I create snippets. So I create really small files for alert boxes, for example. So if I have an alert box which says, hey, make sure to blah, 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 I put only this one alert in one markdown file. And I can then embed this part in other files. It's a really simple functionality and it works very well. And you can also have an automated test to check if all the embedded files are really in there then in the target HTML.
Thank you so much, Petra. You made it. It was awesome. And
Yeah.
look at also at the chat, because a lot of people said it was a great presentation. Thank you very much.